So when I walk in the Home Depot in my area this time of year, it's really kind of odd because I'll walk in and I'll look to my left side and I'll see all these ghouls and goblins and everything else for Halloween. And some of those things could be 10 feet tall. But then I look to my right side and I see all this Christmas decoration with the trees, the evergreen trees and everything else. And it's like I'm seeing the light side and I'm seeing the dark side. Instead of Star Wars, I'm seeing Depot Wars. And so it brings up a interesting thought in my mind when I see that. Because, the book of John says this, in John chapter 1, verse 5, it says, the light came into darkness, and the darkness couldn't consume the light, or the darkness couldn't apprehend the light. I think King James says it couldn't comprehend, but when you look it up in the original, it couldn't hold the light prisoner. Couldn't hold it captive. And so I'm looking through that, and I'm thinking, well, if bringing the light into a dark place. Now, we don't magnify the darkness. As a matter of fact, I stand against everything that Halloween stands for. There's a demonic force behind it, I believe. And, well, I know there's the demonic force behind it, and it's nothing but darkness and demonic activity. But I look at the day, October 31st. And it's funny, on October 31st, 1517, there was a man called Martin Luther, we all know about, with his 95 theses that he went to, it was the Cathedral Chapel or something like that in Wittenberg, Germany, and he nailed that 95 theses to the door of that church and started a complete reformation in the church. A church that had fallen into a dark time was now being brought back into the light. October 31st, 1904, in a little church called Moriah Chapel in Lahore, Wales, Evan Roberts stood up after having a meeting in the Sunday school building of this church, I believe it was, and he said this: how many people are going to stand with me and believe for 1,000, it was 100,000 souls by the end of the year, or within a year. Well, most people thought he was crazy, but 17 people stood with him. And what came out of that was a worldwide outpouring of his Spirit, of the presence of God. A worldwide outpouring of the presence of God in another dark time in history, which brought forth a light that transformed again the course of Christianity. Something that went around the world, and people talk about the Azusa in America here. They talk about the Azusa Street revival, but the thing is, it all had a root behind of what took place in that little chapel on October 31st, 1904. Then 400 years after Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses to that church, the church wall, in 1917, October 31st, 1917, there was the Battle of Beersheba in Turkey, which brought down and started a course of bringing Israel back together. The nation of Israel was reestablished in the 1940s. I believe it was 48. I could be wrong on my date on that, but the course of that was established in October 31st. 1917, 400 years after Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses on the church wall. All of these things happened on October 31st, and what's considered to be by many people, most people, the darkest day of the year. But I want to tell you, where sin abounds, grace abounds much more. Where darkness abounds, light abounds much more. That's what the Apostle Paul said in Romans chapter 5, verse 20. And when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord lifts up a standard. And so when you feel the enemy coming in like a flood, especially this time of year, not far from here, we have what we call what they call Davis Graveyard. And they do a fabulous display every year, big castle and everything else in this older home, and I think for 3 years in a row, it was like one of the top Halloween displays in the country, in the United States. But it's all magnifying darkness. I think 200 tombstones in the yard, 200 tombstones representing death, representing darkness, representing the dark side. But God says, He says, shine as lights in the middle of what looks like a crooked and perverse generation. What is that? Philippians chapter 2, verse 14, I believe. Shine as lights in the middle of darkness. Why? Because it's the light that consumes the darkness. And so I just have this little short little piece for you because I feel like it's something that needs to be said. Let your light so shine in the middle of a dark place. Stand against the wiles of the devil. They talk about the Celtic, the Druids from the Celtic culture. As a matter of fact, I heard someone say once that if you have any Celtic blood in you, that you're demon possessed or you're demonized. Well, we all come from the seed of Adam. We all come from a fallen Adamic creation. And there's something inside of every single one of us that needs to be purged, that we need to be delivered from. And only Jesus can do that. But in this Celtic culture, there were the Druids in this Celtic culture that would bring such darkness, and that's where Halloween came from. But then there were also these Celtic Christians that took a stand. And yes, they had many victories against the Druids of that time. But after those many victories, they also remembered the secret place. That he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And they would find themselves always going back to that secret place. And so in that secret place, they found their strength. They didn't find their strength in the battle of coming against the Druids and things like that, and the victories that they saw, the battle that they went through. They didn't find their strength in the battle, but they found their strength in the secret place. They found their strength in a place of peace. They found their strength in a place of calm. When Elijah, after winning the battle against 350 prophets of Baal, and he left, and he found himself in a place where he wished he could just die. God revealed himself to him. There was a hurricane or a whirlwind that came, and he wasn't in the whirlwind. There was an earthquake, and he wasn't in the earthquake. There was a fire, but he wasn't in the fire. But then there was a small, still voice. So when we find ourselves being able to hear that small, still voice, and not be consumed with the things around you, but be consumed by that small, still voice. Out of that is where we find our strength. That's where Elijah found his strength, where he just wanted to die. He found life. So when we find ourselves in this place of a quiet place, in the secret place, treasure that. Treasure that. And when we find ourselves in that secret place, let it be a strength to you, because he that dwells in that secret place is going to abide in the shadow of the Almighty. Nothing can touch you. It says even if you dash your foot against a stone, the angels are going to be there. With long life, he's going to satisfy you because you've honored his name. So I understand the things that go on over Halloween and the darkness that it portrays. But I want to portray light into the dark place. So let's find that dark place and let's manifest the light and the life of Christ. No, let's not go looking for that dark place, but let's find it and bring the light to it.